What's going on, everybody? We have our episode 5, I believe, for the Kingpins Fantasy Podcast. We got myself, Dan, and Rob here. For those who haven't seen the YouTube, this is Rob. He'll be in a bunch of these and some of our YouTube videos and stuff like that. Just a reminder, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all Peanut Gallery HQ, no periods, underscores, anything like that. And yeah, I guess we'll get into it.
Wait,
Now,
Rob, introduce yourself real quick. Introduce yourself to the
I mean,
people.
he did that on the
Okay.
YouTube video. I didn't. We can
I'll,
introduce him
I
again.
can do it again.
Not everybody watches everything, man.
Yeah. All right. So for
Let's just
everyone
all
that didn't
introduce
see
ourselves
the
every
YouTube,
time.
my name's Rob. I'm going to be a sophomore at Monmouth University. Longtime Patriots fan. Big football, basketball, baseball, all major sports guy. And yeah, I'm just ready to get into this.
I also didn't want to have to talk Patriots again. But
Fair.
okay, if you insist. All right, so we're kicking it off with a fan favorite, Fantasy Tinder. We're going to start with Todd Gurley, who is currently on Fantasy Pros rankings going as player 33, running back 15. Where are we swiping, fellas?
I will say I didn't expect myself to ever be into Todd Gurley again in terms of fantasy, but I'm swiping right on him. There's totally a world where he is a bum this year. The knee continues to be a problem, and he's a great disappointment. But he's such a talented guy. He's in Atlanta's offense. I expect them to move the ball, put up a lot of points, and I think RB15 is a reasonable price to pay for someone who has legitimately top 5 or 6 upside.
I honestly, I thought that I wouldn't like Gurley either, but I'm going to have to swipe right again, I think, as well. And it's mainly because it's like a trend with Gurley at this point. It's like breakout year, and then he has a down year, and everyone's down on him. And you draft him like where he's going now, and then he just turns out to be like a top 10 running back. And I think the change of scenery with him going to Atlanta, I think it will end up working out for him just because you always think of the Falcons as like a pass-first offense. But now with Gurley, he could just fit the Devontae Freeman role, and they can just – I think he'll end up getting a bunch of touchdowns from the goal line.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. I literally was ready to swipe left, but then I looked more into it. He's 25. He's going to be 26 right as the season starts. He is the clear one. More and more the league trends towards committees, and I really don't think that's what we'll be seeing in Atlanta. He's never been worse than RB15, which is his current valuation. So you'd be banking on him having a worse year than he's ever had if you are swiping left. And Devontae Freeman played technically 13 and a half, but 14 games last season and in this exact role and was running back 20. And I think Gurley is a good tier of talent above that. He's got this label of being injury prone, but he has more 16-game seasons than games of 12 or seasons of 12 or less games. And so, yeah, I honestly was thinking I was going to be trying to dig up some dirt on this guy, and there are reasons to be concerned. There is the knee, but I think there's a lot more good here than bad.
I will say the one thing that I thought in response to what you just said is the injury-prone label. Yes, he doesn't miss a lot of games, but he's someone who you've seen it where he'll be active, and then he'll get 5 carries, and CJ Anderson will get 15 or 16, where he'll
Sure.
play, but he will be greatly limited by injuries, which a lot of the times can be worse for your fantasy team than someone just missing a game. If someone misses a game, you can plug in your backup and hope for the best. But if they play and you're expecting them to go out and be their usual self and they get 5 carries, that can be a weak killer for your team.
And who is the backup in Atlanta right now?
I believe Brian Hill / Ito. I think one of them left. I think Ito might be the guy.
Yeah,
I think
it would be him. So, like, if you draft Gurley, like, in the later rounds, it would be really smart to get Ito Smith.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have a handcuff with him.
For those unfamiliar, Fantasy Pros does their rankings. They like rank everyone 1 through 200 or whatever it is, but they also like put dividers for like tiers, I guess, of like player. And Gurley is the top guy in tier 5. Other running backs in tier 5 include Melvin Gordon, and Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell. And I think that's it. And I honestly can't say that I'd put him above all of those guys, but I definitely think that is the tier where he belongs. So while I might move him down a couple slots from 33, I do think that's a fair valuation.
I agree. I think that's definitely the tier of the high-end RB2s who have a little bit more ceiling. Lev Bell, he's going to get a ton of work, catch a lot of passes. Melvin Gordon, a talented running back who should be the guy in Denver. Chris Carson, if he's healthy, should be great in Seattle. So I definitely do think that is a good tier and right around where I think Gurley should be.
Yeah, and I think the big part of it is that just his situation, the team that he's on. There's not like Melvin Gordon has Philip Lindsay behind him. Todd Gurley has Ito Smith.
Yeah.
So it's like the situation just fits perfectly for him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Chris Carson, I think, is very similar now. They each have their like you just expect they're going to miss a couple games on the year, and now there's Hyde behind Carson. So I could definitely see an argument for taking Gurley over him. So I guess we're all swiping right on Gurley. Our next player is Calvin Ridley, currently slotted as the player 37, wide receiver 16. Where are we swiping on Ridley?
Ryan, I'm kind of interested to hear what you have to say first, and I'll explain afterwards.
So I am a hesitant right. Clearly there's talent there, and he's young, but you are drafting a guy at a valuation of a high-end wide receiver 2, and he is the wide receiver 2 in his offense. He's never been wide receiver 16 before. I do know he is young. There's reason to believe he will improve, but his highest he's ever been is wide receiver 22. Although last year he did miss 3 games, the last 3 games of the season, and he was wide receiver 14 before that. So he definitely can do it, and I am, like I said, swiping right. But I think I'm hesitant just because it depends on what my team's looking like when I'm faced with the opportunity to draft him. I think he is almost a lock to be a wide receiver 2, probably if he's healthy, the high-end wide receiver 2 that they have him valued as. But what I will say is I think he is just as much a lock to not be a wide receiver 1. I don't think the Falcons are going to carry 2 top 12 wide receivers. And if I have a really solid wide receiver 1 from the rounds before, I might be looking at people going after him who might not be as sure of a thing, but might have wide receiver 1 upside. The Tyler Lockett, he's going after him. Keenan Allen's going after him. Devontae Parker is going after him. Tyler Boyd is going after him. So it just depends on what my draft is looking like for me. But I do think it is a pretty fair valuation. So that is why I'm swiping right.
So I was interested to ask you, because I saw that you put hesitant right in our document rather than just right. So I wanted to hear your thought, because mine is very similar, and yet funny enough, for basically the opposite reason. I see Calvin Ridley as a guy who's been streaky in his career, who will have a stretch where he has 6 touchdowns in 4 games and is looking like a world beater, one of the great guys. I think he's a super talented player. And so when you say that you don't think he could be a wide receiver 1, I think he has the ceiling to be a really, really good player, a really good wide receiver 1, even with Julio there. And then there's the caveat of maybe something happens to Julio, which Julio's been pretty healthy over his career, not something that's been a big concern, but you never know. It's football. And if that's the case, Calvin Ridley could be a top 5 or 6 fantasy receiver. I think he's that talented, and I have that much faith in Matt Ryan and Atlanta's offense. Where I have the hesitancy is, like I said, he's streaky. He hasn't been able to fully put it together yet. So that's where the risk comes in is this the year that Calvin Ridley finally does put it together?
I could see it. I just think he finished, like I said, wide receiver 22 as a rookie, wide receiver 27, but would have been 14 last year if he kept his pace and didn't get injured. So I don't really worry that he will be worse than that. I just don't see why that would happen. Um, I just, again, you did mention that Julio's there. They also have Hayden Hurst, who will probably fill a role similar to Austin Hooper. They have Gurley, another pass catcher, and likely to be a consistent scorer for the Falcons. I just think there's a lot of places this ball could go. So I don't see him being a wide receiver one, unless, like you said, Julio misses games.
Okay. I was waiting for you guys to convince me a certain way. I was in the middle. I didn't know. Ryan, when you first said he was going at wide receiver 16, I was like, okay, that seems a little high. But then you were hesitant, right? Danny was right, but for different reasons. And I'm just thinking about it now, and I think I would also swipe right on him and I think it helps him out a lot because Julio is there. People could think that Julio being there is a negative, but you'd have to think when, say, Julio would go up against someone like the elite corners in the NFL, he would get shadowed. And Calvin Ridley has the talent to be a wide receiver one on a lot of teams. So that's where most of his opportunities came from. When he goes up against Marshawn Lattimore in New Orleans, he just gets shadowed, and Julio has had a tough time going against that matchup, and that's when Calvin Ridley has shined. And Austin Hooper, you mentioned him a little bit, had his breakout year last year.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's gone, that's going to have to be filled with something. Hayden Hurst is there, but the chemistry will take a little bit to find itself with Matt Ryan. So he's already familiar with Calvin Ridley. So I think for that reason, I would swipe right on him as well.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to get into how the draft would be going for someone in this position just because it changes, but I was thinking about it. And if you're at the back of the third, top of the fourth, which is where player 37, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, player 37 would put you. I'd have to imagine that if you're drafting at the back of the first, you're probably getting a receiver, probably another running back, and then I would go running back again, depending on who's there, just because running back talent runs out before receivers tend to. And I honestly could see myself going running back again at the top of the fourth and then waiting for a Jarvis or a Boyd who are currently going in the 60s. But that's just me. I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on what you would do there, or we can just get on to Dak Prescott.
I mean, so much of that, especially this early in the offseason, is just so speculative.
Yeah.
That I tend to go into a draft. I don't really have that much of a plan. Obviously, I'll have a couple names I'm looking at each round, but I kind of like to wait, have the draft come to me, and take the situations as they come so that I can be fluid and not have too much of a rigid plan.
Yeah, no, but Ryan, what you said was making sense. If you're at in a 12-team league and you're at the back of the first round, you usually go like when we did our mock draft, we were able to choose from Julio and D-Hop.
Yeah.
And that's how we went. And I feel like at the end of the third, start of the fourth, that's not when you're that's if you pick a receiver there, it's because they fall to you.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you would have to go running back. So I
Yeah.
kind of feel like what you were saying made sense.
Yeah. Okay. Dak Prescott is our next guy, player 55, so middle of the fifth round. Quarterback 3, where are we swiping?
All right, so this is my first fantasy Tinder. So what's the furthest right? It's a super.
You can super yeah.
Super like.
I'm going to super like Dak Prescott, I think.
Okay.
And I think it's for one, CeeDee Lamb. I love CeeDee Lamb. I think that just making Michael Gallup the second or third receiver on your team, that just bound for good things to happen. And the big thing is, above everything else, he needs to get paid. He wants to get paid. Everyone knows that he's waiting to get paid as the top quarterback in the league. So they're going to see if it's really worth it. because they're probably like Zeke's still there, but when people stuff the box and just line up on the line to stop Zeke, that's
Yeah.
when Dak's really going to show if he's worth all the money he's asking for. And with Cooper, Lamb, and Gallup, I mean, I think you don't really even have to be that good. You just got to find whoever's open.
Yeah, for real. You mentioned his contract situation. I can't remember because I feel like I saw they offered him the largest contract in NFL history and he turned it down. But then I also feel like I saw that was false.
Yeah, I don't think that was true.
No? Okay. But yeah, he definitely wants to be paid somewhere in that neighborhood. So it'll be interesting to see. I am close to a super like, I think, but because I just tend to not go quarterback super early, I will be just swiping right. He's got Mike McCarthy there now. Interestingly enough, Aaron Rodgers under Mike McCarthy was the quarterback 1, quarterback 2, quarterback 1, quarterback 2, had an injury season, back to 1, 7, 1, injured again, and then 6.
And that was totally all because of Mike McCarthy, and definitely not.
Okay, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Is Dak Aaron Rodgers? No, but he was the QB2 last year, so you know he can do that, and he's more mobile, which I feel like makes up for what he might be trailing Rodgers in terms of arm talent. So he's proven he can do it. I also mentioned last year Dak was quarterback 2, and his weapons got better. I brought up Mike McCarthy because I think his coaching is better. And he's still in the part of his career where you expect him to be getting better every season. I know Mahomes missed games, so obviously he finished ahead of him in terms of on the season, but he had a higher points per game than Mahomes did. Not that I really expect that to remain, but I'm just saying he is close to that tier. And if I was a bigger fan of drafting quarterbacks in round 5 or earlier, I would definitely be super liking. In terms of Tinder equivalent, he is a dime. He is a bona fide hottie. It's you just look through his profile and you cannot find something wrong with him. And I will swipe right and chat him up, even if I hate his personality, which as a born and raised Eagles fan, I do in real life. So yeah.
So I am now proud to be the first person not to swipe right on somebody.
Okay.
Keep it from being 9 straight. And it's not because of Dak as a player, and it's not because of his ranking amongst the other QBs. I totally agree that Dak at the QB3 is a fair price. He's going to be on a great offense. He's a talented guy. He puts up points. But if I'm going to be taking a quarterback that early, around player 55, they better be elite. And the only ridiculous cream of the crop top QBs are Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes for me. I think we can all agree after those two, it is a massive teardrop to Dak Prescott. And so at that point, I'm just not willing to take a quarterback early who I think isn't one of the best guys. And I think I can get similar production in the next 2 or 3 rounds later with guys like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I've already said
people like that.
I've said Josh Allen is probably my guy, and if not, I'm waiting. And I think there's definitely a massive drop in talent. I don't think Dak should be paid what he wants to be paid, but if I'm looking at it in terms of fantasy, I can't remember the exact numbers. Lamar averaged something like 28 points a game, and Dak averaged 21, and Mahomes was like 20.8 or something. So I think it's not a steep drop off in fantasy. I think Dak will definitely finish below Mahomes on the season. I think that might have been just a fluke thing. That probably included the game he got hurt. I don't really remember when he got hurt. So I would agree that they definitely should be going a round or 2 ahead of Dak like they are. But I definitely think 5 is a fair valuation, which is why I'm swiping right. I forgot to mention last time too, I had a Tinder equivalent for Calvin Ridley, and that is a girl who's got a great body, and you can see her face is all right. It's not a deal breaker. So you know the floor is high, but you're not really expecting a head-to-toe smoke show when you see her for the first time.
Which is, again, funny enough, the exact opposite of what I think of Calvin Ridley as.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Are we ready for some AJ Brown?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Player 43, wide receiver 19, according to Fantasy Pros. What are we doing?
I'll just jump right in. This is an easy swipe right for me. It's not a super like. I don't love him because I don't have a ton of faith in Ryan Tannehill, and it is a run-heavy offense. They're going to try to feed Derrick Henry. That is what they want to do. But A.J. Brown was the wide receiver 21 last year, and he's being as valued as the wide receiver 19 now. Brown didn't begin to really break out and start to become the guy in Tennessee until week 7, week 8, once Tannehill got there, and then a couple weeks after Tannehill got into it. That's when we really started to see A.J. Brown produce. So I think a full season with Tannehill, a full season as the guy, he'll have had a full NFL offseason to keep learning the offense, improving his game. I think wide receiver 19, assuming health, is a floor for A.J. Brown.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, no, see, I don't want to be that guy. First Tinder fantasy swiped right on everyone. But I've just been swiping away this time. So yeah, I think I would swipe right. I think it's the most comfortable swipe right. Besides, I super like Dak, but
Right.
other than Calvin and Todd Gurley, I think this is more comfortable. And I think just having Derrick Henry there, being a run first offense, just helps them so much, because that offense, if you don't put 7 people in the box, they're just going to run all over you. And Tannehill and Brown showed they had a connection. That connection on top of Derrick Henry led them to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if them as a team will be that good this year, but I feel like that connection with Brown when they're down in games will get them back in it, and it's going to be the one that win them games eventually.
Yeah. You're swiping like a drunk guy at 2 a.m. I will be swiping left, but I do see what you were saying, and I see what you were saying too, Dan. I think, like you mentioned, he finished 21 last year, so to say 19 is out of the picture is definitely you would be wrong. You expect he'll improve. He was a rookie last year, but I just can't say I love the system. He is the only really capable receiver there, which does work for some people, but in a heavily run first offense with a quarterback I don't necessarily believe in. And he had 84 targets last year. I don't really see that increasing all that much. He caught 52 passes. When you're looking at the other guys in this area, they are just dozens above that.
I will say I think that's ridiculous. To say you don't think his targets will go up from 84, I don't think there is a world out there where A.J. Brown plays most of the season, 14-plus games, and finishes with 86 or less targets. I think it's a pretty safe bet to get 100 this year.
Ryan, who do you think would end up having more targets, A.J. Brown or Calvin Ridley?
I don't know. I guess just because actually, no, I will try and find it really quick. I won't try and stall the show. My guess would honestly be Ridley. They just pass it a lot more. And I'll make my AJ Brown point first, and then I'll look that up. I just think, like you mentioned, sure, teams have to stack the box, but then you look at what the secondary is responsible for, the cornerbacks especially. It is primarily just AJ Brown. You are not really game planning around Corey Davis and Adam Humphries. And I will say as well, last offseason, the Titans were building their offense around the idea that Delaney Walker was going to be their tight end. And then when injuries kind of ruined that, Jonnu Smith came on and had a solid rookie year. I think now that they're going into the offseason, they're prepping for a younger, more athletic tight end and Jonnu Smith to be the guy. I think he's going to be a much bigger red zone presence, and then you have one of the biggest red zone presences in football in Derrick Henry. And why that's important is because A.J. Brown was the wide receiver 21, like we mentioned in PPR. He was 9 in standard. And like I mentioned, he's not catching a ton of balls, which is a big part of it. He was very scoring dependent. And I can't say that with a much more capable and prepared tight end this year and Derrick Henry still there, that I think he's going to improve on the 8 touchdowns.
A couple thoughts for me. And I will say, I agree. I think 8 touchdowns is probably around his ceiling. Most of his touchdowns weren't red zone touchdowns. He was more of a stretch the field guy who would beat defenses and get longer touchdowns. So the presence of Jonnu Smith doesn't threaten that too much. But then also, you talked about the fact that he was considerably worse in PPR. I think that's largely because he wasn't being targeted for almost like quote half of the season, like 5-6 games. He was barely being used. And then once he started getting used, those numbers took a huge jump, and I think they will continue to take a jump in the future. Also, Calvin Ridley was targeted 93 times last year.
Okay. And he was out for 3 games. So I definitely think Calvin Ridley will be seeing more targets than A.J. Brown this year. I honestly, I don't even remember where I saw this. I was doing some research, and I don't know what their criteria was for determining when someone's open, but only on 25% of those targets was A.J. Brown considered open as well, which means he made an impressive amount of contested catches. He's a big athletic dude. But I also just think it speaks to the fact that when defenses are game planning for this team through the air, they really don't have to do much. They have to worry about A.J. Brown, and they have to worry about Ryan Tannehill throwing to A.J. Brown, which is something I would feel like a cornerback secondary coach considers a week off. So, yeah, if you look at who's going around him, it's like, hold on, Cortland Sutton. Do we like Cortland Sutton more than A.J. Brown? Because I definitely do.
I don't think I do. I don't love Cortland Sutton.
I mean, but I assume your knock on Cortland Sutton is that you don't love his quarterback situation and you're not sure of his role in the offense.
I do love his quarterback situation. I'm a big Drew Lock fan.
Okay.
I think there's just a lot of mouths to feed in Denver. Whereas A.J. Brown is the unquestioned guy, no one's going to be challenging him. And I agree Cortland Sutton will probably be the one in Denver. He has Judy taking targets. He has Hamler taking targets. He has Noah Fant taking targets. And I think Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay are going to be a lot more relevant in the passing game than Derrick Henry will be in Tennessee.
I mean, Derrick Henry's a big dude, but he did catch a decent amount of passes. But all right, I would take Sutton. Parker's there too. I think I would take Parker. Which is why I'm swiping left. It's not the worst valuation ever. Like I said, it's not out of the question that he hits 19, but I just like people with more upside.
Well, the only thing with Parker, I wouldn't trust him because Ryan Fitzpatrick has to be overthrown at some point.
Yeah.
And the only reason that would happen is because they're struggling and they lose games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, I mean, I would just trust the person on the better team. And going back to like Tannehill as his quarterback, when you like look at someone and your biggest knock on them is their quarterback and it's not actually about the player themselves, that tells you that you're dealing with like someone who has a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm not questioning that he's talented, but I don't think the coaching staff has a ton of faith in Tannehill, although he definitely, if I remember correctly, got paid like they do.
Yeah.
I just think the play calling doesn't really reflect that.
All right, you ready to draft?
We are going to move into our next segment. It is going to be a snake draft for the best games of 2019. We still haven't gotten to Patrick's punishment from the last one. He will be spending 24 consecutive hours with his dominant arm taped to his side. We're just trying to schedule a golf game or something like that, something where we could really watch him struggle. So we'll try and get that up as soon as possible. Today, we will be waxing some leg hair. And you all out there will have a say. We are going to post The three of us, that is right. I am up for grabs this time. We're going to be posting our three teams, and you are all going to vote, I guess, in the comments, like liking our name in the comments or something. And the lowest person will be having some leg hair ripped clean out. We're going to be randomizing on this list thing. How do I share my screen? And we're doing a snake draft, correct?
Yes. Have you said what we're drafting yet?
The top games of 2019. I'm not
And
sure if I did.
Are we including postseason?
Regular season.
We are.
Postseason. And it's a 3-round draft.
Okay.
3-round draft.
Oh God, lots at stake.
We're gonna go Dan, me, then Rob.
I do not like the 1-1. That's a bummer.
I mean, in a 3-round snake draft, that I feel like that's the best place to be.
I think my last pick though. I think my last pick isn't one of the best games, so I kind of like that. It just has a lot of meaning behind it.
Okay.
All right.
Dan,
With
do you
the
have a pick?
1-1, I'm going to take the AFC divisional round. Chiefs versus Texans. Chiefs 51, Texans 31. So for anyone who doesn't remember this absolute awesome game, the Chiefs go down 28-0 in the first half before Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid inevitably explode for 41 straight points, end up winning by 20 after being down 28-0. Offense out the wazoo. Best game of the season, no doubt.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. And if you just really love the game, feel free to keep rambling while I pick. But if you are done, I think I have my selection.
All you
I'm really hoping you don't pick what I'm about to pick.
all of the games I really want,
I'm gonna-
aren't gonna fall.
Because
I'm going to go with Niners versus Seahawks, week 17 to decide the 1 seed. Winner was 1 seed, loser was 5 seed for the NFC playoffs. If you do not remember, Jacob Hollister was pinned literally centimeters short on a game-winning touchdown, and time expires. It was a nail-biter for sure. I remember watching that and then just furiously texting everyone who I knew was watching too, because I could not believe it. It was definitely exciting. Really unfortunate that it put Jadeveon Clowney in the position it did to spear Jesus reincarnate Carson Wentz. But yeah, it was probably the most exciting play I've seen in a while.
I think that's a great game. I don't know if it has the memorability of a lot of other ones that I have on my list personally.
yeah,
See, what really did it for me is I pictured the way people are going to be voting. It's just going to be like a picture of us and then like pictures of the 3 games, and you slide to see everybody's teams. And I think the picture of Hollister getting crunched on the actual goal line is going to jog some memories. Rob, you have our next 2 games.
Oh, next to okay. See, the one I really wanted actually wasn't picked.
Okay.
I'm
Wow.
gonna go. I think it would have been week 14.
Mm-hmm.
Niners
That
versus
sounds
Saints.
Yep.
48-46.
That was my second choice.
You want a game that looks good just on a little stat line.
Yeah, like you want
46, 48.
that's
Like
like
Kittle
a
stiff
Madden
arm.
game.
It'll catch and run. Beautiful.
That's like a Madden game, like 2:00 in the morning, where you and your friend are just drunk and you're just going back and forth.
Yeah, great pick. Great pick.
Yeah, at that point, like this was like the Niners. Like the Niners just lost to the Ravens at this point, and it's like their time to actually like show that they can be like a NFC powerhouse. They haven't played the Seahawks in week 17 yet, so this was like their okay. Jimmy Garoppolo could lead this team.
Yeah.
Let's see. What? Okay, and I think people just love offense, so I'm gonna go. Let's see. Oh, I gotta make this right.
Sorry, I'm gonna write these down.
Wait, Danny, what was your AFC divisional game? Ryan, what was your first game?
Niners Seahawks week 17.
Okay. Okay, I'm debating between 2. Oh man. Okay. Okay, I think I'm gonna go the first San Francisco Seattle game.
Okay.
This was week 10 in overtime. San Francisco's first loss.
Yeah, I remember that was high up on my list too. This was a real series to remember.
Yeah.
Between the
No, so that was San Francisco looked like an absolute powerhouse, and Seattle ended up beating them. I think Robbie Gould missed a field goal before regulation to send it in overtime. And where I remember I was glued to the TV seeing if the Niners would actually end up losing their first game.
Yeah, the Niners seem to be a lot of people's favorite games.
Yeah.
I have a couple. I had a handful of Niners games on my list.
Okay, it occurred to me, and if it had occurred to me, if I had actually read my notes, this probably would have been the one I selected at the 2. So I am happy it fell. I have Bills versus Texans wild card round. A lot went on. Just absolute mayhem. There was that weird call with the fair catch rule in the end zone. Was that like right coming out of halftime, I think?
Yep.
Absolutely crazy. And then the ending, I don't even remember how it went to overtime. Dan, perhaps you'd like to shed some light because I'm sure you remember this game.
I don't want to shed some light. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
I will say I had it on my list, and I would have probably taken it at the turn here. So thank you for sparing me from having to do that. The Josh Allen pitch to nobody.
Pitch to nobody. Yeah, I was going to keep going.
Deshaun Watson bouncing off of 2 defenders. And then
oh, my God.
You're doing my job for me.
30 yards. The Bills were in field goal range to win it in overtime. Got called with a bull crap. I'm done.
Ryan, that's a good strategy.
Oh, was that
Danny vent for you?
The block? What?
Let Danny vent for you. That's a good strategy.
He's just proving how memorable this one was. What was the blindside block? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I stand by the fact that he was I think it's a dumb rule, but if you're going by the rule.
Okay, then if you're going by the rule, the Bills should have gotten a touchdown at the start of the second half when the other team's kick returner decided to drop the football, but whatever.
Yeah. I kind of see that one. I just didn't like how much you were whining, so I think I took a somewhat strong stance, but I don't know. It might have been a stretch. So yeah, Texans v. Bills. We got the helicopter Deshaun Watson escape. Dan, where are you taking us at the end of the third round or second round?
I am actually very happy with the way this played out. I got my 1-1, and now, I really like the way this played out. I actually have what I believe was the best game of the NFL season sitting on the board for me. That's Saints-Texans week 1, 30-28.
That was on my list.
Just the last 4 minutes of that game were absolutely wild. There was 3 scores in the final minute, including like a 57-yard bomb to Kenny Stills, followed by Breeze leading the Saints right down. They get the game-winning field goal. Just absolute thriller to start the season. I loved that game. I think that's a great pick for the end of the second round.
Yeah. Worth noting, we have what we believe to be the 6 best games off the board now. We have 3 Texans appearances and 3 49ers appearances.
Well, let's make it 4 49ers appearances. How can you not take the biggest game in the sport?
Yeah, that was going to be
Super Bowl, Chiefs 31, 49ers 20. Great pick in the third round. Andy Reid's first Super Bowl after years of being an awesome coach. Mahomes' first Super Bowl, maybe the beginning of the next great dynasty. The Chiefs came back from double-digit deficit for the 3rd straight playoff game. Easy pick. I am confident I'm not losing this draft.
Okay. See, it's hard to know because while your Bills game, well, my Bills game, but like
it's my Bills game.
Sure, your Bills game. You know that everyone remembers it. It was playoffs. It was crazy. This one, it's a little tough. I am going with Eagles versus Packers week 4 because absolute mayhem, just trading blows. Pretty high scoring. Let me find the exact score. Maybe that'll jog some memories. I think it was 34-27 Birds. We made a huge stand on defense to close out the game. Packers went down in Lambeau. It was definitely a memorable one for me. I can't say that there was the textbook comeback or like visual of a certain play that a bunch of these games have, but it was a slugfest, and I watched it with my whole dorm in our common room, and there was a couple Packers fans. It got ugly. It was intense, but it was definitely one I remember very well.
I gotta say, I think that might have been a swing and a miss. You are drafting to get votes from the audience, and I think memorability is key. And I don't think everyone's going to remember that game. They will remember all the other ones that have been taken so far.
There was a cliff. I will say I have a couple more because I was expecting we were planning for like 5 on this podcast, but we had a couple last minute exits. So I was actually ready for a lot more, and any other of the games I have, I do not see on the same caliber as the first 7 that went. So it was just a personal favorite for me.
I might have one at the last pick of the draft.
Actually. Did I miss one?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Okay, so I have 3 still on my notes that have been taken. So I'm just going to give 2 honorable mentions before I actually pick.
Okay.
I also have 3 left. We'll see.
So my first honorable mention was Bucks Rams 55-40, 902 passing yards and 6 touchdowns combined. My second honorable mention, Niners Ravens 2017. And then the one I'm actually going to pick, the most memorable for me would be the AFC wildcard game, Patriots-Titans.
Okay.
Interesting. The fall of a dynasty.
It wasn't because it was such a great game. That game it made me want to like do some bad things. But I just remember Tom Brady's last play in Gillette Stadium as a Patriot. Pick six. And not only that, I remember I was sitting on the couch after the game just thinking about everything. And I was like, if that's his last game, I will never forget what just happened. So I think just for the memory and the fact that it was an end of an era, and just for that reason, that's why I think I picked it. Even though
I think that's a solid pick. But I think both of you guys made the mistake of going homer picks in the final round.
It was between 2 for me. I don't know if this is what you were going to say. I was also considering Daniel Jones' first start.
Yep. That was the next highest on my list.
Yeah, that was a good one too. But I am pretty confident. The Packers are just a team everyone cares about, whether you love them, hate them, or just downright respect them. And the Eagles are also a pretty they get some passion out of everyone.
Definitely a polarizing.
Oh yeah, I mean the Patriots. It's either their fans or you
That's true too.
Hate them. That was my strategy. I went for points, high scoring game, and the end of the Patriots Tom Brady era.
I think you definitely made the right pick out of your 3 that you listed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're listening to this, head to our Instagram either right now or depending on when you're listening to this. It'll probably come out, what's today, Monday? It'll come out tomorrow, Tuesday. Definitely give us a vote. We'll probably cap it after 24 hours or something like that. So make sure you get your votes in. Thank you for listening or watching, depending on how you are viewing this. Definitely hit our social medias because now you guys are getting involved in some of these votes. You don't want to miss that. If that's everything from me, fellas, are we good?
Go Bills.
Go Pats.
And go Birds. All right. See you.
Go Bills.